How do I explain Brancusi? I can't really. I just find it beautiful. It moves me. I can't put it into words. Well, I'm a Brancusi floozy. Hi, I'm Stephen Jones, and I'd like to show you my Spring-Summer 25 collection, which is called The Curve, which is based loosely on Brancusi. In '95, I went to this wonderful exhibition at the Pompidou Centre, and then there was almost a repeat of the exhibition this summer. I remembered when I first came to Paris in '84, the designers who I worked with were equally inspired by him, and that was Azzedine Alaïa, then after that Thierry Mugler, then after that Claude Montana. So here is just a soupçon of the collection. This is a mask inspired very directly by Brancusi, and it's made from copper and then gold plated. So it's got this wonderful arched eyebrow, which Brancusi as well was inspired very much by African sculptures. Now, I can't really get it on myself because I have such a pert little nose, but it goes on like that. I can't really remember when I first discovered Brancusi, maybe when I was doing my A-level art, but I was astounded by the simplicity and sense of calm that just came from his sculptures. I mean, he worked in marble, he worked in stone, he worked in wood, but really the things that excited me most of all was his heads of Madame Pogany. So it's a tribute to Brancusi. I don't think I could ever do anything as perfectly exquisite as this. When I first came to Paris, I was introduced to Azzedine Alaïa and made many hats for him, both for his shows and for theatre and ballet performances. And this particular hat is sort of the essence of what I did for him. It's a beret. He loved berets. He thought it was a symbol of France, coincidentally French, very sexy. So I made this gold beret for him. No, I didn't. As it's a Brancusi beret, it had to be in gold, and this is gold stitched straw. Another little thing about it is that this is flying, as you can see. It doesn't actually touch the head. On the inside is a very nice surprise, because after very many years, I had a label here made in a jacquard technique by Julien Fauré in France. And they are the traditional makers of ribbons, and in particular, Basque berets. So this is a jacquard of the Stephen Jones crest. Anyway, I'm very happy to have done that at last, after 44 years in business. Azzedine introduced me to Thierry Mugler, and the first show that I worked with him on was the famous show at the Zenit, where Pat Cleveland was winched down from the ceiling wearing one of my hats. That hat is going to be in my exhibition at the Palais Galliera starting this October the 19th, called Stephen Jones Chapeau d'Artiste, and it's a discourse between me in Paris and Paris and me. Thierry was a complete showman, and we worked together for quite a while, and he loved things which were spectacular, and he loved gold, and he loved Brancusi. So this is a fabulous visor. It's just a visor with gold-plated crinoline. My relationship with Thierry was extraordinary. When he came to London, we would go out for dinner. We had great fun together. He introduced me to all these extraordinary places in Paris called the Club Set. When Sabine and myself walked into the Club Set, all dressed up, everybody stood up and applauded us. It was extraordinary and such a memory. And this was 1985. I just take off Monsieur Brancusi's very own hat, which is of artist canvas, painted, and this lovely Brancusi-inspired mannequin will try it on. So there we are. Doesn't she look amazing? Wow. Party on. Thierry was extraordinary because he could really create beauty, but also he could create kitsch, and he knew how to combine the two. This was often done through the eyes of Hollywood, but somehow that's how his designs, even though they now are 40 years old, some of them, are still as relevant today. Of course, there was the huge shoulders, there was the glamour, but there is a magic, and that Mugler magic is not repeatable. I saw him last at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris, and he saw me from the far side of the room. We hadn't seen each other in 25 years. And he shouted, "Stephen Jones!" And we went through and had our picture taken together. And so sadly, a couple of weeks later, he died. Anyway, R.I.P. Thierry. Thank you for everything that you gave to me. The next hat I'd like to show you is a hat which is almost a reproduction of one that I made for Claude Montana. And this was originally worn by Yasmin Ghouri in navy blue organza, but this is this season's in gold. It's an asymmetric trilby visor, and that's how it looks on. This is gold leaf on acetate with gold tulle. I love this shape. Claude I worked with for almost 20 years, through the good times and the bad times. His cutting and his sense of perfection was extraordinary. We would work through the night. He would ask me to unpick something, to remake something. He was such a taskmaster. Sometimes I'd be in tears. It was very difficult, but my God, I learnt so much. And as Susie Menkes once said, his clothes were cut with a compass. His shows were glacial, his mannequins perfect, whether it was Yasmin, or Carla Bruni, or any of the great girls of the day. But it left a lasting impression on me. The quest for perfection that he had was unlike any other person I've ever met. it was to the millimetre, it was not to the centimetre. Sadly, none of these designers are any longer with us, but if they were around, they'd judge these hats. They'd give me a hard time. Azzedine would like the hat, he would like the idea that the hat is coming up, but he would say to me, "Stephen, maintenant tu dois chiquer le chapeau." Now you have to make it look chic. And I would think, well, is it not chic at the moment? And he would say, I use that expression because that was what Madame Paulette would say, and she was the greatest milliner of the 20th century. What would Thierry say to me about this? I think he would like it, but I remember him saying to me once, bigger and more rhinestones. So he would want this full length, worn by a man. If I had made this for Claude, what would he say? I think we would have studied this in many, many toiles beforehand. So I would have put it on the girl, but he would have spent maybe 15 minutes asking me to adjust it at different angles. Then he would have instructed the model how to come out and how to pose and look at the camera in this hat. He would have then taken the hat off and said, well, what's the difference about wearing the hat and not wearing the hat? I want you to show me. And this was at 5 o'clock in the morning. So if Brancusi had seen this, well, he might have sued me. But also he might have said, why are you making a costume out of my art? But at the same time, he might have just enjoyed it. He had a sense of humour. At the time that I was working with these designers, it was all about the silhouette. It was the shape of the shoulder, the roll of the hip, when the girl came out, the curve of her leg as she came through into the spotlight. Often these clothes were made to be seen almost from far away, not close up. So what you wanted to see was the form, the silhouette, the grandeur. Fashion then was not about looking sweet or charming. Fashion then was about having a commanding presence. This was the 80s power woman. She was not a shy violet. Of course, these aren't the only hats in the collection. We have 15 model hats, each of them different, all of them handmade, and then we have a collection of Miss Jones and Jonesboy hats, so lots to choose from for Spring Summer 25.